The soft light of dawn gently washes over the endless plains, turning the dry grasses into a sea of pale gold and muted copper. The world awakens not with a sudden movement, but with a deep and rhythmic breath that seems to rise from the very soil. In the cool morning haze, massive dark shapes emerge slowly, standing like ancient resting stones in an ocean of silver dew. These are the Cape buffalo, gathered in quiet unity, their heavy hooves moving with a deliberate slowness that grounds the earth beneath them. The air is entirely still, holding only the faint and earthy scent of crushed leaves and the melodic sounds of the waking wilderness. Upon the broad and weathered backs of these gentle giants, a delicate and silent dance is just beginning.
Tiny red-billed oxpeckers land lightly on the thick hide, their small claws finding a familiar resting place on the living mountains that offer them warmth and sanctuary. It is a quiet agreement woven into the fabric of the savanna, a harmonious partnership moving softly in the glowing morning light. The early sun climbs slowly above the horizon, painting the sky in delicate shades of peach and lavender. Down below, the savanna is a vast ocean of tall, golden grass that sways gently with the morning breeze. Moving through this shimmering sea are the quiet giants of the plains, navigating the terrain with a calm and measured pace. The Cape buffalo walk close together, their massive bodies brushing against the dry stalks with a soft, rhythmic rustle. There is no rush in their movements, only the steady grace of creatures perfectly attuned to the ancient tempo of the earth. Their heavy hooves leave shallow prints in the soft, dew-drenched soil, marking a path that has been followed for countless generations. The cool air is still fresh, carrying the earthy fragrance of wet dust and sweet grass. As the herd stops to graze, the profound silence of the morning is broken only by the steady sound of feeding and the deep, resonant breaths of the animals. Thick horns sweep back like dark crowns, catching the first warm rays of sunlight, while their dark coats begin to dry from the night moisture. It is a moment of pure stillness, a beautiful pause before the heat of the day truly begins. Upon the broad and sturdy backs of the grazing herd, a delicate flurry of activity unfolds in perfect harmony with the slow movements of the giants. Small birds with striking red and yellow bills flutter gracefully from one buffalo to another, their sharp claws finding an easy grip on the thick, coarse hair. These are the oxpeckers, the devoted caretakers of the savanna, moving nimbly across the vast landscapes of muscle and hide. They work with astonishing precision, hopping along the curved horns, resting near the large ears, and navigating the steep slopes of the buffalo flanks. Every motion they make is purposeful, yet entirely relaxed, creating a continuous, gentle massage for their massive hosts. The buffalo stand completely still, closing their heavy eyes and lowering their heads, deeply enjoying the soothing attention. It is a silent language spoken between two vastly different species, a bond built on quiet trust and mutual comfort. The tiny wings create soft murmurs in the air as they briefly lift off, only to settle back down on a neighboring giant. In this peaceful morning light, they are not just passengers, but essential companions in the tranquil rhythm of savanna life. As the sun climbs higher, pouring liquid gold over the vast African plains, the herd begins to seek the comforting embrace of the shade. Beneath the sprawling canopy of an ancient acacia tree, the dark shapes settle down onto the warm, dry earth, their massive forms melting into the tall grass. A collective sigh sweeps through the resting group, a deep and resonant sound that vibrates through the very ground beneath them. The rhythmic rise and fall of their broad chests becomes the metronome of the midday savanna, slow and incredibly soothing. Even in slumber, the oxpeckers remain close, nestled against the warm skin, finding shelter in the small valleys between the heavy shoulder muscles. A gentle breeze passes through the thorny branches above, casting moving patterns of light and shadow across the sleeping giants. The heat of the day softens all sounds into a distant, ambient hum, wrapping the resting animals in a blanket of absolute serenity. Eyes are half closed, ears twitch only occasionally to brush away a stray fly, and the entire world seems to pause, breathing in unison with the herd. Here, under the protective branches, time stretches out into an endless, golden afternoon. Later in the afternoon, the herd slowly rises from its slumber, drawn to a shallow depression in the sun-baked earth, where the soil turns into incredibly fine, soft powder.
One by one, the massive animals lower themselves down, sinking heavily into the loose dirt with obvious satisfaction. They roll gently from side to side, tossing clouds of rich, red dust into the air, creating a beautiful haze that catches the slanting rays of the sun. The dust settles like a velvet blanket over their dark coats, cooling their skin and providing a comforting protective layer against the elements. The oxpeckers take to the air during this joyful upheaval, fluttering like small confetti against the bright sky, waiting patiently for the ritual to conclude. As the buffalo rise and shake their massive frames, a magnificent cloud blooms around them, glowing softly in the fading light. It is a simple, earthy pleasure, a daily ceremony that connects them intimately to the land they roam. The tiny birds quickly return to their familiar perches, settling back onto the freshly dusted backs as the herd begins to wander toward the evening light. The savanna air holds the dry, sweet scent of crushed soil, wrapping the landscape in a deep and enduring peace. As the afternoon sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, the savanna is bathed in a rich amber light that softens every edge and deepens every shadow. The buffalo herd moves with a gentle, unified purpose toward the quiet waters of a nearby lake, their heavy steps creating a dull, rhythmic thud against the cooling earth. The water lies perfectly still, a flawless mirror reflecting the pastel hues of the fading sky, unbroken by a single ripple until the first giant lowers its massive head. They drink with long, slow drafts, the sound of water parting and flowing becoming a mesmerizing melody in the quiet evening air. Each gentle movement creates perfectly concentric circles that drift lazily outward, distorting the reflected clouds before settling back into a glass-like calm. The oxpeckers, mindful of the moisture, move upwards to perch upon the sweeping curves of the horns, looking like tiny sentinels outlined against the glowing sky. Here at the water's edge, the air is visibly cooler, carrying the scent of damp reeds, wet mud, and the deep green fragrance of aquatic plants, offering a refreshing contrast to the dry heat of the day. The reflection of the herd in the undisturbed shallows creates an illusion of a world doubled in size, a serene kingdom where land and water meet in perfect symmetrical harmony. Every movement is languid, every breath is steady, as the animals savor the life-giving coolness that washes over their dusty muzzles. The small birds occasionally dip their beaks into the water droplets lingering on the rough hides, sharing the drink in a quiet, intimate communion without ever leaving their secure perches. As the sun dips lower, painting the water in incredible shades of liquid gold, burnt orange, and deep violet, the herd remains entirely peaceful, anchored in this beautiful moment of collective restoration. The slow shifting of hooves in the soft mud adds a rich, earthy sound to the symphony of the twilight, a gentle squelch that speaks of abundance and calm. The transition from day to evening is not a sudden curtain falling, but a slow, graceful fading of colors as the sun finally slips below the distant tree line. The vibrant golds and reds give way to a soft, enveloping blanket of indigo, slate, and muted purple, cooling the vast expanse of the savanna and bringing a profound, heavy stillness to the air. The buffalo leave the water's edge at a leisurely, unhurried pace, their dark silhouettes merging seamlessly into the gathering shadows of the tall, whispering grass. The oxpeckers, sensing the subtle shift in temperature as the dusk settles, seek out the thickest patches of coarse hair along the spines and broad shoulders of their giant companions. They nestle deep into the natural, radiating warmth provided by these massive, living hearths, their tiny bodies becoming practically invisible in the fading light. It is a time of quiet settling, as the herd finds a favorable, open space to rest for the night, their bodies naturally arranging into a loose but deeply comforting configuration. The ambient sounds of the environment change entirely, transitioning from the dry, crackling rustle of daytime insects to the soothing, rhythmic chorus of evening crickets and the distant, melodic calls of nocturnal birds. The heavy breathing of the buffalo becomes the grounding bass note to this nighttime symphony, a slow and steady exhalation that speaks of absolute contentment and unworried rest. Even in the dimming light, the bond between the massive herbivores and their tiny avian partners remains entirely unbroken, a delicate, unseen thread of mutual comfort woven through the cooling night air. The air grows rich and heavy with the scent of night-blooming flora and settling dust,
gently inviting every breathing creature to surrender to the soft embrace of the coming dark. The savanna breathes out, a long, collective sigh that rolls silently across the darkening plains, whispering an ancient, wordless lullaby to the resting giants and the sleeping birds alike. Above the resting herd, the sky slowly transforms into a breathtaking tapestry of a million glittering stars, an endless canopy of pale light stretching infinitely from horizon to horizon. In the deep velvet darkness, the great shapes of the buffalo are barely visible, appearing merely as dark, rounded hills rising softly from the silver-tipped grass. The silence of the night is profound and absolute, an ocean of quiet, broken only by the rhythmic, deeply hypnotic sound of the herd slowly chewing their cud. This monotonous, gentle grinding is the very heartbeat of the nocturnal savanna, an incredibly comforting, repetitive sound that signifies safety, calm, and slow digestion. The oxpeckers are completely hidden now, tucked securely against the immense, radiating warmth of the buffalo skin, sleeping entirely undisturbed upon the breathing, mountainous forms that sustain them. A cool, gentle night breeze wanders aimlessly through the resting herd, causing the dry stalks of grass to brush lightly against the sleeping giants in a soft, continuous, whispering caress. The bright moonlight casts pale, silvery reflections on the smooth, polished curves of the large horns, creating faint, ethereal halos of light in the vast sea of darkness. There is no sense of rushing time under this immense, starry dome, only the slow, majestic passage of constellations and the deep, restorative, dreamless rest of the quiet wilderness. The earth beneath their heavy bodies holds the lingering, baked warmth of the daytime sun, radiating a subtle, comforting heat that slowly rises to meet the cool night air. In this perfect, undisturbed quiet, the beautiful alliance between the incredibly mighty and the wonderfully minuscule slumbers on, cradled securely by the vast, ancient, and endlessly peaceful African night. The deep velvet of the night gradually gives way to the fragile, pearlescent light of a new dawn. A thick, silvery mist clings low to the ground, wrapping the sleeping herd in a cool and perfectly silent embrace. The tall grasses of the savanna are heavy with dew, each individual stalk bending slightly under the accumulated weight of countless crystalline drops that have gathered slowly during the quietest hours. As the distant horizon begins to blush with faint, delicate shades of rose and soft apricot, the massive shapes of the Cape buffalo stir slowly from their deep, restorative slumber. There is a profound, inherent gentleness in their waking process, a slow uncurling of incredibly heavy limbs and a deep, resonant exhalation that creates small, fleeting plumes of white vapor in the crisp, chill morning air. They rise, one by one, their movements unhurried and deliberate, shaking the night dew from their thick, dark coats with a muted, rumbling sound that rolls softly across the awakening plains. Deep within the dense fur of their broad, muscular shoulders, the tiny oxpeckers also begin to gently greet the arrival of the morning. They emerge from their warm, living nests with soft, delicate chirps, carefully adjusting their small feathers after a long night of entirely undisturbed rest. The savanna is still beautifully suspended in a dreamlike, hazy quiet, holding its breath as the sun slowly prepares to crest the distant, rolling hills. The air carries the incredibly fresh, clean scent of damp earth and crushed herbs, promising another long day of golden warmth and shared, peaceful rhythm. The delicate birds hop lightly along the ridge of the broad backs, ready to begin their day of quiet service. The very first golden rays of the early sun finally manage to pierce the dense morning mist, casting long, stretching shadows across the waking landscape. The brilliant light touches the broad, dark backs of the resting buffalo, slowly warming the chilled skin and transforming the damp, surrounding grass into a vast, shimmering field of liquid diamonds. The massive herd stands perfectly still, positioning themselves deliberately to absorb as much of the morning warmth as possible, their large, dark eyes half closed in an expression of pure, simple contentment. For the small, brightly colored avian companions, this is a beautiful moment of quiet, shared indulgence. The oxpeckers spread their delicate, intricately patterned wings, turning their tiny bodies directly toward the rising sun in a beautifully synchronized, miniature display of morning sunbathing.
They perch gracefully upon the highest, curved points of the sweeping horns, their small, elegant silhouettes beautifully framed against the expanding, brilliant pastel sky, drinking in the gentle, reviving heat. The surrounding air begins to hum gently with the very first subtle sounds of daytime insects taking flight, blending seamlessly with the deep, rumbling, rhythmic breaths of the grazing giants. It is a remarkably slow, deeply luxurious transition from the cold stillness of the fading night to the vibrant, yet entirely peaceful, energy of the new morning. There is absolutely no hurry in their movements, no sudden change of pace to disrupt the calm, only the incredibly patient, gradual unfolding of a brand new day. The profound quiet of the wilderness is respected and maintained by every creature, guided solely by the ancient, timeless rotation of the warming earth beneath their steady hooves. As the morning mist slowly begins to lift and gracefully dissolve into the warming, golden air, the herd initiates a slow, unified movement toward fresh, green pastures. They move together like a slow-flowing, dark and powerful river winding through the golden savanna, an unstoppable but entirely peaceful force of ancient nature. Their heavy hooves fall in a perfectly rhythmic, wonderfully unhurried cadence, pressing softly into the damp earth and releasing the rich, grounding, organic scent of crushed soil and wet roots into the breeze. The tiny oxpeckers ride along with completely effortless grace, experiencing the slow journey as a gentle, rocking sway aboard their massive, moving, breathing islands. They hop nimbly and confidently from the broad, flat backs to the steep, sloping flanks, continuing their meticulous, devoted care even as the vast landscape slowly shifts and changes around them. The buffalo pause frequently to graze as they walk, pulling the sweet, dew-soaked grass with a soft, rhythmic tearing sound that quickly becomes a continuous, incredibly soothing background melody. A profound, almost tangible sense of harmony moves with the entire herd, a deep feeling that they do not merely inhabit this beautiful landscape, but are an integral, breathing, and deeply connected part of it. The gentle morning wind whispers softly through the thorny branches of the scattered acacia trees, catching a few dry leaves that drift lazily down to meet the slowly grazing animals. In this incredibly vast, wide-open space, the immense scale of the dark buffalo and the incredibly delicate presence of the little birds create a perfect, deeply calming portrait of completely tranquil coexistence. To quietly observe this remarkable partnership is to witness one of the most beautiful, entirely unspoken agreements anywhere in the natural world. The great buffalo, with their immense physical strength and mountainous, unmovable presence, provide an absolute, unwavering sanctuary, a moving landscape of continuous warmth, abundant food, and total safety. In return for this moving haven, the tiny oxpeckers offer their completely tireless devotion, working diligently to keep their gentle giant companions entirely comfortable and deeply relaxed throughout the long, sun-drenched days. It is a relationship beautifully and entirely devoid of any conflict, a bond built solely on mutual care, profound trust, and the quiet, inherent understanding of deeply shared needs. The small birds ask for absolutely nothing more than the safe shelter of the thick, textured hide, and the massive buffalo ask for nothing more than the soothing, comforting touch of small, delicate claws and busy, precise beaks. Together they seamlessly navigate the immense golden expanse of the African savanna, two vastly different expressions of natural life, perfectly and permanently attuned to each other's quiet existence. They are deeply connected by completely invisible threads of ancient trust, weaving a daily story of perfect cooperation that is older than the oldest, most weathered baobab tree standing silently on the open plains. As the majestic herd continues its incredibly slow, peaceful drift across the endless, hazy horizon, the delicate red and yellow bills of the tiny birds flash beautifully like small, living jewels in the bright, clear afternoon light. It is an absolute masterpiece of natural evolutionary design, an enduring, completely peaceful alliance that brings a deep, resonant, and lasting peace to the wild, beating heart of the continent. As the sun eventually completes its long, incredibly slow arc across the brilliant, cloudless sky, the vast savanna prepares once again to quietly embrace the gentle, soothing rhythm of another perfectly peaceful evening. The bright golden light gradually softens into gentle, muted shades of copper and lavender. The warm afternoon wind finally settles into a quiet, barely audible whisper, and the deep, rumbling breaths of the resting giants merge beautifully once again with the slow fading of the day. The tiny, devoted avian companions nestle deep down into the thick, protective, radiating warmth of the dark fur, closing their very small eyes as the immense world around them begins to slip gracefully into a profound, restorative, and entirely undisturbed stillness. This beautiful connection is the eternal, completely unwavering heartbeat of the ancient plains, an endless, reassuring cycle of continuous warmth, gentle care, and absolute, enveloping serenity. Allow this deeply rooted, completely unbroken peace to wash fully over you now, slowly carrying away all the lingering weight of the day, leaving behind only the soft, gentle rustle of dry, moving grass and the incredibly slow, heavy, grounding breathing of the resting savanna. Rest safely now, exactly as the beautiful natural world rests, securely cradled in the deep, quiet, and perfect harmony of this unseen, gentle alliance.